Hi everyone, this is Anna Haferman, and today I want to show you how to make this hat on the Brother KX350. This is a very simple starter project. It's a hat that's gathered on the top. It has a hung hem with picot edge, and it's pretty simple. Now for this for this hat, I'm going to use the Walmart Basic Mainstays yarn. This is a medium yarn, and it's a number 4. So any number 4 yarn, most number 4 yarns will work. This one is nice and soft and smooth, so it works pretty well. This is the same yarn that I've wound into a cone, into a cake. And you will need to wind yours up using a yarn winder. So my waste yarn is this pink yarn, and I'm using that to cast on. My tools I'll need today are my needle pusher, my 1x1 needle pusher, a pair of scissors, my 1-3 tool, and possibly my latch hook if I need it. I'll need some weights and a couple of yarn clips and my cast-on combs, which are these. And I'll have to put the cast-on combs together because I'm going to be using 70 needles. So you just hook them together in the middle. So the first thing we're going to do is cast on with the waste yarn. And I'm going to go from needle 35 all the way over to 35 left. Now I've put all those stitches out to E position. I'm going to put every other one back to position A in non-working position for the cast on. And then I'm going to thread the carriage with my waste yarn. I'm going to put a clip on the end of the yarn. I'm going to clip that so it hangs by itself and I don't have to hold it. And then I'm going to knit across at tension 2. And it's cast a stitch onto every other needle. Then I'm going to hang my cast-on comb, catching each loop. So I'm going to try to get this part in the middle close to 0. It won't go exactly at 0. And then I'm going to hang it there, trying to get you may have to move your carriage out of the way to get it on correctly. Pull it out a little, pull the yarn out so you don't hook it on the ends. And there you go. And then take your weights and hang them on the bar. Now, get your pusher, pick up every needle you had put back to position A, and don't forget last number 35. And come back. And now you've got a stitch on every needle. So now knit a few rows in waste yarn. 10. Then I'm going to go back up to tension 8, which is what I'm going to use with my main yarn. So you have a or 2 on the hanging. Then cut your waste yarn. And I'm going to put it away because sometimes it tangles up with the main yarn, so I'm just going to stick it away so it doesn't get caught. And I'm going to take the clip that I originally put on it, put it on the new end to hold it down Then I'll take my main yarn. Now I'm going to reset my row counter. The way you do this, there's arrows on the row counter. The first two go that way, and the last one goes that way. So we start with the first one, turn it to 0. It's already at 0. Second one, turn it in the direction of the arrow to 0. And then the third one, go the other way to 0. And we'll start. We want to do 12 rows in our main yarn. Now I like to leave a long tail so I can knit it up after, so I can sew it up after. So leave a tail that's about 3 times as wide as what you're knitting. You can clip it close to the edge. 1, 12 rows. Now we're going to make the Picot hem, which is this. And the way we do that is we transfer every other needle across the bed, and then we'll fold the hem up and rehang these stitches up here. And when it folds, after we knit a few rows, it will make this little hem. So we take our single transfer tool and we'll transfer, starting with the first one, take that off, go over to the next. The next one, take it off, go over to the next one. And we do that all the way across the bed. And I'll show you that, how it works when I get a little in better camera view. This is very easy once you get the hang of it, but at first it can be a little awkward. So here's what I'm doing. I'm putting my finger there, or my thumb, pulling out, pushing all the way in, and transferring over and pushing down, pulling out, going in, going over, down, out, in. It's got to clear that hook, otherwise you won't be able to get it off. If you try to take it off like this, it's almost impossible. But pull out, pull in, go all the way out. It clears the needle all the way in, and bring it over, out, in, bring it over. And then we go all the way across. Now, there we are. So now what we'll do is all the needles that we took out of work, which were, well, we took the stitches out of, are sort of all back here. So we want to make sure those all come back. We want all of our stitches that we have 2 stitches on, all our needles we have 2 stitches on back there. And because we have extra stitches here, what I like to do is bring them all the way out, because this way the carriage doesn't have to work so hard. Because it's got an extra stitch on there, it's easier if you just pull it all the way out. So now we're going to go to, we want to do 12 more rows, which is what we're going to fold up. Well, that was what we have on there. That's where we took the stitches out. Then we're going to do 12 more stitches, hang them, and then when we knit them together, because we're knitting from the wrong side, with the wrong side showing, it'll look like this. So we knit across, and And you could reset your row counter here and go up to 12, or you could go to 24. Now, what we will do is I'm going to take off my cast-on comb because I have to hang these stitches up here, and it's going to get in the way. So I'm going to take my weights. Actually, I'm going to wait on my weights. Take off the cast-on comb. Put it aside. And then I will take this clip off because I don't need it anymore. Then I'm going to hang my stitches on the bed one at a time. When you knit, when I hang it, it's just the nature of it that there will be one less of these on the bottom than are at the top. So what I'm doing is I'm taking this little bar here that's sort of a U shape, and I'm going to hook it on, get my tool in there and hook it onto the needle. What I'm doing, this stitch ends up here, facing that way. But since we're going from the purl side, I'm going in here. If you work with a waste yarn that's a little thinner than your main yarn, it's easier to get your next stitch. Now you can go, once you get a little better at it, you can do 3 at a time. But to start, you probably just want to do 1 at a time. So you put your hook in, get up to your needle, and then because we have extra stitches and we're going to tax the carriage a little bit going across, pulling them out makes it a lot easier. So then I'm going to weight down these edges. I'm going to put one in the middle. I'm going to go up to tension 10 for this next row, and this next row only. I'll hold that down. I'm going to go across a little slow, just make sure you get everything. Now go back to tension 8. Now, I'm going to reset my row counter. So you get it to 0. We're at tension 8. Pulling these down because I don't have quite enough weight on it. Go start at 0, and we're just going to knit at tension 8. 1, 28, 30. And that's probably enough. So now I'm going to go to 31, and then I'm going to transfer again every other needle, and this time I'm going to I'm going to do the transfers exactly the same. I'm putting a finger under the stitch so I give it a little tension. Okay, so I've transferred all my stitches, every other stitch, over to the other one. Now this time, I don't want these middle stitches, the stitches in between, to knit, because what we were going to do is knit every other stitch. And that way it'll decrease the number of stitches by 2. And then when we, it makes it sort of look like ribbing. It's actually kind of a mock ribbing. And then when we gather it at the top, it sort of all goes together and you don't really even notice that it's different. It's just sort of a kind of a design feature as well. So I don't want those to knit. So I want to push them all back to position A, which is non-working position. And then my stitches that have 2 stitches on them are in working position. But again, because there's extra stitches, I'm going to bring these out to position E so that I don't run the risk of dropping a stitch. And I'm at tension 8, and now I'm going to rehang my weights. I probably should have done that earlier, but I wasn't having any trouble with it, so I didn't think of it. So we'll go across one row, and now we're going to go down a whole tension to tension 7. I knit across, go down to tension 6, so I'm at tension 5. I'm going to go across, go down to tension 4, tension 3, tension 2, tension 1. And we're almost done. What I'm going to do now is get out my double eye transfer tool. These are inexpensive and you can get them on eBay, probably Amazon. I can put a link in the video. So now what we're going to do is cut off a piece of yarn about twice as wide as our knitting. And then we're going to sew these stitches off onto the double eye transfer tool. So we'll take the yarn from the end of the knitting, thread it onto the double eye transfer tool. If you don't have one of these, you can use a darning needle, but it is much easier with one of these. And like I said, they're easy. They're inexpensive. So what I'm doing here is exactly the way we transferred. I'm going to pull the stitch off to go all the way out and back, but then I'm going to keep it on the needle and thread it through the needle. So now we go to the next stitch, sew that one off. We're doing this exactly the same way as when we transferred. We're just getting it on the, sewing it off onto the tool, onto the yarn. Now, and once we do this, this will be the top of the hat. If you like my videos, please click subscribe and the little bell. This is the first in a series of simple wearable Brother KX350 projects. And all these projects that can be done on the KX350 can also be done on the LK150. You may have to adjust your tensions slightly, but the LK150 is a 6.5 millimeter machine, whereas Brother is a 7 millimeter machine. They're both mid gauges. They're slightly different in that respect, but in general, anything the KX350, the Brother, can do, the LK150 can do as well. The LK150 does have a couple extra functions that the KX350 can do, but price-wise, the KX350s usually cost much less. So now we've knit everything off. All these stitches are on this needle, and as you can see, if we pull this, it gathers up. And that's going to be the top of our hat. Here's the hem. We'll knit, if we will sew up the side with Mattress Stitch, and then gather the top, and then we'll have a hat. But the first thing we want to do is take off our waste yarn. So this side is where we started, and pulling this off this way is going to be harder than this way. So we go to the end, we find that very last stitch, and we're going to cut the waste yarn. We're only cutting the waste yarn, only cutting the pink. Do not cut any blue. So we're going to try to get that last stitch. It's not too hard, just get that last stitch and cut it. So then we've got this end. If we pull that, we pulled that one row out, and then it comes off almost like magic. And there's our where we hit the row where we knit the hat when we hung the hem. That's where the row that we knit on tension 10. We did that so it would not give us too much of a line here. If you do it at the same tension, it kind of tucks in a little bit. So now what we'll do is Mattress Stitch up the side. Now we're going to sew the hat up the sides. Here's the long tail that we started with at the beginning. This is the tail from the end. Put that over there. So what we're going to do is go right together and sew down here around. We're going to go, these will go together, and this will go together, and then the sides here will go together all the way up to the top. So if you do any hand knitting, you'll probably know how to do this. This is called Mattress Stitch. So we're using our tool. Again, you can use a darning needle if you'd rather, but since I have this, I'll use this. It doubles as a needle, a darning needle. So what we do, here's the yarn coming from there. I'm going to go in here, we'll start on, here's the outside of the hat and the inside. I'm going to start here. What I want to do is go in this first row, and there's a row of stitches. I want to go into the next stitch here. So I'm going one over, and I want to go, each time I go in, I'm going to go in this line here. So I'm going to go in and scoop up 2. And I'm going to go in on this one, other side, and get 2. I'm going to mix. I guess I'll start here. So we're going to try to get 2 of these little bars. 1, 2. We're going to go in and then out. Then I'm going to go over here, go back into where I came out. You can see where I came out. And then go in, still staying in that same row, cutting 2 little bars on my needle, in and out. I go over here, staying in this same line here. Here's where the stitch came out. Go back in here, in, and have 2 on my needle, come out. So each time I'm going in and out, I'm getting 2 bars on my needle. So I came out here, got 2, came out here, and you can tell where you came out because you kind of tug on it and you'll see it if you have any doubts. 1, 2. In, out, in, out, and when you get to the picot, it gets a little confusing, but just try to, so you still have the 1 stitch here, you still have your 2 bars here. That's where your old stitch was. So once you get past the hem, it gets a little easier. So it came out there. We're going to go in to where the old stitch was. And I'll come back when we're more towards the top. We've done the whole seam, and it's pretty invisible. You can see it from this side. And put this piece towards this middle. Now take your top edge and just pull it tight. You pull that tight and you'll get sort of a little round circle there. Pull it as tight as you can without really straining it. Then rethread your needle with that piece, the piece that's gathering up the hat. You can cut it a little shorter now, so you can work with it. You take your stitch, your needle, go in, this is the top of your hat, so you want to make sure it's gathered up with just the one one piece of yarn, so you want to make sure it's secure. So then go inside. Once you've done a few, go inside to the middle, pull it through, and tie it to the thread that you sewed up the side with. So tie those together. Knot them. So there's your hat.